They said I belonged in a greasy apron and kitchen slick shoes. That night, my mother-in-law handed me a pink envelope. Divorce papers. My husband's camera was right in my face. I signed. I smiled. Because in exactly 14 days, my name would appear on the 10 p.m. news ticker Harper Flores, investigative reporter, and the story airing would be the nail in their coffin. My name is Harper Flores, and tonight, I turned 29. The restaurant was Fennel and Fur. It was their choice. Of course, Riverton's idea of fine dining. All exposed brick and amber lighting so dim it felt like wading through honey. The air was thick with the smells of seared scallops and old money. From across the table, the clinking of silverware from other diners sounded distant, like wind chimes in another county. I sat opposite my husband, Mark Crown, and his mother, Elaine. Elaine wore her power the same way she wore her pearls, tight and expensive. She smiled, a precise, blood-red slash that never reached her eyes. Mark, as always, was viewing the world through a screen. His phone was already out, propped against the water glass, its black lens aimed vaguely in my direction. He called it capturing memories. I called it collecting evidence for his mother. "Happy birthday," Elaine said. Her voice was smooth, laminated. She slid a thin, pale pink envelope across the table. It was heavy cardstock, adorned with a single, embossed silver butterfly. "This is from all of us, a new beginning." Mark's hand moved. He wasn't propping the phone anymore. He was holding it steady, arm braced on the table, the red recording light a malevolent dot in the center of our lives. He was filming my reaction. This was the performance they had rehearsed. I looked at the envelope. The silver butterfly's wing seemed sharp enough to cut. I knew it wasn't a card. It wasn't a check. It was a sentence. I picked it up. My hands were steady. I'd spent the last 6 months as a line cook at a diner, and my hands were used to heat and precision. I slit the envelope open with my butter knife. Inside, there was no birthday greeting, just thick, watermarked pages, folded in 3. At the top, in severe black lettering, was the name of a law firm I had never heard of: Patterson, Klein, and Dubois. Below that, petition for dissolution of marriage. This was it, the ambush, the public execution they craved. They expected shock. They expected tears. They expected a scene that would validate every story Elaine had ever told about the unstable girl from the wrong side of the tracks. I let the pages unfold. I scanned the terms. My eyes moved quickly, recognizing the legal architecture, irreconcilable differences, waiver of spousal support, division of assets, which was laughable, as Mark controlled every account. Vacate the premises within 48 hours. I read it all, my expression as neutral as if I were reading the dinner menu. I could feel Mark's focus intensify. The camera lens was a gaping mouth, waiting to swallow my breakdown. Elaine watched me, her smile tightening, impatient for the explosion. "Well," Mark prompted, his voice tight with anticipation. I looked up, first at him, then at his mother. "It's very thorough." Then, I reached into my purse. I didn't pull out a tissue. I pulled out a pen. It was a simple retractable pen, heavy, its barrel a deep sapphire blue. As I clicked it, I saw their eyes flicker to it. Engraved on the clip, in clean silver lettering, were 4 letters and 2 numbers, NCN10, Northbridge City News. It was a logo they had never seen before, from a world they didn't know I inhabited. I laid the last page of the petition flat on the table. Next to the bread plate, I found the signature line, Harper Ann Crown. With a steady hand, I drew a single, dark blue line through Crown. Beside it, I signed my name, Harper Flores. The ink flowed smoothly, a bold, definitive stroke. I pushed the signed document back across the table. "Thank you. Elaine, you've made this very efficient." My voice was perfectly calm, so calm, in fact, that I saw Mark's hand visibly jerk. The phone in his grip trembled, the little red light wavering. This was the unscripted moment. This was the part of the show they hadn't blocked. Elaine's smile didn't falter, but it became brittle, a porcelain mask with a crack forming beneath the glaze. "Harper, I don't think you understand." "Oh, I do," I said, my voice still quiet. "You want a divorce? I've agreed. It's done." Mark lowered the phone slightly, his brow furrowed in genuine, idiotic confusion. "But you didn't even read it." "I read enough." I closed my purse, but not before taking one more thing out. It was a small, folded piece of paper, a certified mail receipt, green and white, flimsy. I unfolded it and placed it on the table next to my empty wine glass. They both stared at it. It was nothing dramatic, just an official-looking slip from the post office. But the timestamp, printed in jarring dot matrix, was clearly visible. It was dated 1 week ago. They didn't understand it. They weren't supposed to. Not yet. It was just a receipt, a promise that something I had sent had been received, a piece of my world, now intersecting with theirs. The restaurant, which had been a low hum of activity, suddenly felt very quiet. The couple at the table next to us had stopped talking, their forks hovering over their plates. A waiter, holding a tray of cocktails, had paused mid-stride, his eyes locked on the stark white legal papers sitting next to Elaine's silver butterfly envelope, the birthday gift. I looked down at my watch, a simple, functional digital watch I wore for work. The numbers glowed back at me, 9:07 p.m. I looked up at Mark, at his stupid, confused, handsome face, the face I had once loved, the face that had started to look more and more like his mother's. 53 minutes left, I whispered. It was just to myself, but in the silence, it carried. "What?" Mark asked. 53 minutes until what? I didn't answer him. I pushed my chair back. The sound of its wooden legs scraping against the floor was loud, abrasive. I stood up. I looked at the table, the half-eaten bread, the full glasses of water, the divorce papers, a perfect still life of an ending. "I already took care of the bill," I said, pulling my jacket on. "The whole thing. Happy birthday to me." Elaine looked genuinely scandalized, her hand flying to her pearls. "Harper, you sit down. We are not finished." "You are," I said. "I am." I turned away from them. I didn't run. I walked. I could feel every eye in fennel and fur on my back. I could feel Mark's camera, probably raised again, filming my retreat. Let him film. Let him capture the last time he would ever see me as the person he thought I was. I reached the heavy oak door and pushed it open. Stepping out into the cold Ohio night, the air was sharp and clean. I paused on the sidewalk. Looking back through the window, I could see them. Two startled, furious figures in the warm, honey-colored light. Elaine was grabbing the papers. Mark was staring at the door. I had one last thing to say, though they couldn't hear me. "I wish you both," I said to the glass. "Exactly what you deserve." I turned and walked toward the news station. I had 51 minutes until airtime. The walk from Fennel and Fur to the Northbridge City News Studios wasn't long, maybe 10 blocks, but my mind was moving much faster than my feet. The cold air stung my cheeks, a welcome shock after the suffocating warmth of the restaurant. That warmth, that honey-colored trap, had been my life for 4 years. It wasn't a sudden poisoning, it was a slow drip, an erosion. It was the endless Sunday dinners at the Crown Estate, a sprawling brick monstrosity that always smelled faintly of lemon oil and old silver. I would be introduced to Mark's third cousins or his mother's garden club friends, and the script was always the same. "And this," Elaine would say, gesturing with a hand heavy with rings, "is Mark's wife, Harper." She would pause, just long enough for the person to register my off-brand dress, my non-club haircut. "She's a waitress." She said waitress like it was a terminal diagnosis. In her world, I wasn't Harper Flores, the woman who had put herself through 2 years of state college, the woman who could run the entire breakfast rush at the Riverport Diner single-handedly. I was Mark's wife, a title, followed by the waitress, a label. I was an accessory they had to apologize for. The diner job was my line in the sand. I loved the chaos, the honesty of it. I loved the smell of hot coffee and frying bacon. It was real. But to them, it was a stain. It's just temporary. Of course, Elaine would say to me over coffee, her voice oozing synthetic sympathy. This was after I'd been there for over a year. It's fine while Mark is building the firm. But Harper, darling, you must be thinking about the future. Perhaps it's time you learned something of actual social value. Social value. I remember gripping my coffee mug. What did you have in mind, Elaine? Well, Brooke's friend runs a marvelous little course on floral arrangement, and the charity board always needs volunteers to sit. I was always the contrast to her daughter. Brooke, who had a vague job in finance at her fiancé's father's firm and spoke only in exclamation points about her bonuses. At Christmas, Brooke held court, flashing her new engagement ring, a diamond so large it looked like a weapon. Kevin just closed the quarter and it was massive, she'd announce. Finance is just so incredibly essential, you know. Later, I tried to share a small victory of my own. The diner was featured in the Riverton Gazette, I offered. They called us the best breakfast in the county. Elaine smiled that tight, bloodless smile. Oh, how charming. Mark, darling, tell us again about that Lakebridge property deal. That sounds truly significant. Every conversation was a hydraulic press, designed to flatten me, and Mark, the man I married, was the one operating the controls. This was the deepest cut. The Mark I fell in love with was gone, replaced by a hollow-eyed echo who wore his mother's opinions. The original Mark used to sit at my counter, back at my first job, drinking bitter coffee for 2 hours just to talk to me. He'd told me my independence was a force of nature. He'd said he loved that I didn't need anyone. That man died 6 months after our wedding. The new Mark managed our finances. We had a joint credit card. My name was on the plastic, but his was on the account. I discovered the reality of this arrangement in a checkout line at Kroger. I was buying shampoo, milk, and a box of tampons. The card was declined. The cashier, a kid barely out of high school, looked at me with open pity. It says supplemental user, requires primary approval for the transaction. I had to call my husband from the parking lot, my face burning, to ask permission to buy hygiene products. Oh, right, he'd said, his voice breezy, distracted. Mom and I are just implementing a new budgeting system. She's a wizard at this stuff. Just text me before any charge over. Say $50. It's just to keep us optimized. Harp? No big deal. A leash, not a budget. A leash. He was editing me, correcting me in public. If I told a story to his friends, he'd jump in. Whoa, babe, he'd laugh. A tight, nervous sound. What Harper means to say is that the customer was just a little confused. He'd pat my arm. She gets dramatic. The diner life. You know. He was translating me, sanding down my edges, reducing me to something palatable for his family's consumption. I found my solace after my shifts, not at home. I'd go to the Switchyard, a dark, narrow bar that smelled of stale beer, bleach, and bourbon. It was the only place service industry people could afford to drink. I'd sit at the bar, and Ms. Halpern, the bartender, would slide me a beer without asking. She was maybe 60, with steel gray hair and a tight bun, and the calmest eyes I'd ever seen. One night, I was just staring into my glass, the weight of 100 tiny humiliations pressing down on me. You look like you're carrying rocks, kid, Halpern said, wiping the bar. They just make me feel so stupid, I whispered. She stopped wiping. She looked at me, her gaze level. Harper, listen to me. They don't think you're stupid. They are terrified that you're smart. They need you to be small, so they can feel big. It's the oldest, cheapest trick in the book. Her words hit me like a splash of cold water. That night, I went to the drugstore, not Kroger. I paid cash. I bought a black, spiral-bound, reporter's notebook, the kind with the stiff back. I started documenting, not my feelings, just the facts. I wrote down the insults, the casual degradations. I started adding times, Dates: March 14th, 8th at 14 p.m. Elaine. Must be nice to have a job you don't really have to think about. April 2nd, 6:02 p.m. Mark, just let me handle the talking with the realtor. Harp, this is complex. April 20th, 1:30 p.m. Rook, I don't know how you stand the smell of grease all day. I'd die. It wasn't a diary. It was a logbook. It was the habit of an observer, a collector of details. I didn't know what I was collecting for, but I knew I had to. Then, about 4 months ago, she started coming into the diner. She always sat at the counter, always in the end booth. She wore sharp, dark blazers, drank black coffee, and never looked up from her laptop. She was a regular, but not a friendly one. She just worked, radiating an energy that was both frantic and focused. One Tuesday, we were slammed. A tour bus had broken down. I was handling a six-top, running plates for 2 other servers, and trying to refill coffee down the line. I got to her, pot in hand. "You need a refill," I said, not asking. She looked up for the first time. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. She watched me for a second as I moved down the line, calling out orders to the kitchen. Table 4, BLT no mayo. Make that bacon extra crispy. Table 2, scrambled light, wheat toast dry, side of fruit, counter guy, refill, 2 sugars, and he's still waiting on that side of fries. When I came back, she had her wallet out. "How do you do that?" she asked. "Do what?" "Remember it all. You didn't write down a single order for that 6-top. I shrugged. "I just watch them. People have patterns. The woman in the blue coat was obviously in a hurry, so I knew she'd want her check first. The man at table 2 keeps rubbing his stomach, so he probably wants something simple, like dry toast. I see the details." She nodded slowly, a small, impressed smile tilting her lips. "You have a camera memory." She paid her bill and left. On the counter, under her empty mug, was her business card. It read Zadie Morales, NCN 10, Investigative Unit. I called her 2 days later. We met for coffee. I was nervous, still thinking I could fix my marriage, still thinking this was a betrayal of Mark. "I don't have a degree," I told her. "I don't know anything about journalism." Zadie stirred her coffee. She hadn't taken her eyes off me. "You took a 6-person order with multiple complex modifications without a notepad. You anticipated the cook plating the wrong side dish and corrected him before it left the window. You noticed I was a reporter before I ever said a word. You're observant. You have a memory like a steel trap, and you're not afraid of confrontation. You're already in the business. Harper, you just happen to be wearing the wrong uniform." That was the spark. I started going to the station on my days off, just watching, learning. Zadie gave me tasks. Transcribe this interview. Fact-check this police report. Find a phone number for this shell corporation. My notebook changed. The entries of insults stopped. The entries of facts began. Phone numbers, timelines, public records. And the more I dug, the more I realized my temp job wasn't the only thing that smelled wrong. The smell was coming from my own home. It was coming from Crown Ledger Services. The investigation didn't start in the dark. It started under the humiliating, budget-friendly fluorescent lights of my own kitchen, with a piece of mail Mark hadn't bothered to hide. He was so proud of his optimization of our finances, so certain I never looked at the statements, that he had merged our joint checking account with his business payroll. I was balancing the checkbook, a habit ingrained from a decade of poverty that the Crowns found deeply amusing. And I saw it, a deposit, not a withdrawal, a single deposit for $100. The memo line read, CLS, Community Consult Fee H, Flores. CLS, Crown Ledger Services, Elaine's consulting firm. I stared at it for a full minute. I was a waitress. I hadn't consulted on anything. It was a mistake, but it wasn't. I went to the Crown Ledger Services website for the first time. It was a slick, gray and blue void, filled with stock photos of smiling, white-haired seniors shaking hands with men in sharp suits. The language was intentionally dense: legacy planning, generational asset protection. Elder asset optimization. It was a wall of expensive words designed to mean nothing and everything. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from adrenaline. Mark was arrogant. He believed I was as technologically simple as his mother did. Our home server had a shared family drive, where he kept vacation photos and tax returns. He never imagined I would look deeper. I did. I found a folder named Lakebridge Project, a name I'd never heard. Inside were dozens of PDF files, invoices. My blood went cold. I clicked one open. Invoice consultation fee for estate tax review. The amount was $2,000. The client name was Harlan Bates. I opened another. Fee for generational asset reconciliation. $3,500. And at the bottom of the signature line, in a space marked CLS Community Liaison, was a signature, H. Flores. It was my name. It was not my handwriting. It was a sloppy, arrogant forgery. The loop on the H too high. The S too soft. It was the signature of someone who had glanced at my driver's license once and thought, good enough. In the same folder, I found the marketing materials, a PDF of a flyer, designed to look like a public service announcement. Worried about your future, are your assets protected? Get free. No obligation advice from Crown Ledger Services. It listed a toll-free number. I didn't call from my house. Zadie had already taught me that much. I went to a gas station on the highway and bought a burner phone with cash. I sat in my car, the rain drumming on the roof, and dialed. A bright, chirpy voice answered on the second ring. Crown Ledger, how may I direct your call? My heart was hammering against my ribs. Hello, I'm calling about the free advice for seniors. My father saw a flyer. Oh, wonderful, the voice chirped. That's our Lakebridge initiative. It's a marvelous program. Let me connect you directly to Elaine's office. This is Brooke, her senior assistant. I'll put you right through. Brooke, my sister-in-law. Her voice was an octave higher, starched and pressed with a fake professionalism. Senior assistant. I hung up. The rot wasn't just Elaine. It was the whole house. I took the forged invoices to Zadie. She laid them out on her metal desk under the harsh lights of the NCN 10 newsroom. She was unimpressed by the forgery. This is, he said, she said, Zadie said, tapping the paper. Elaine will say you signed it and forgot. Mark will back her. We need public facts, something they can't deny. She turned to her computer. Search the local paper archives. Search Crown and Charity. It took me less than 10 minutes. The Riverton Gazette Digital Archives, 4 months back. Sunset Pause. Gala raises record funds. I clicked the link. There she was, Elaine, beaming, wearing a truly hideous sequined jacket. She was front and center, handing one of those giant cardboard checks to the director of the animal shelter. The check, in huge black numbers, read $50,000. The caption quoted Elaine extensively about Crown Ledger's commitment to the community. Okay, Zadie said, looking over my shoulder. Now, call the shelter. I called Sunset Pause the next morning, using the persona of a doctoral student researching local philanthropic trends. I'm compiling data, I said, my voice smooth. Could you possibly confirm the total amount of your major private donations last year? The woman on the other end was thrilled to help. She rattled off a few names. And let's see. Oh yes, Crown Ledger Services. They were our biggest donor. A check for $10,000. I paused. 10,000. Are you sure I saw a photo suggesting 50,000? The woman gave a sad little laugh. Oh, that, yes, that was for the cameras. The other 40,000 was, well, it was deducted as an administrative and processing fee by their firm before the donation was finalized. We were just grateful to get anything. A $40,000 gap. They weren't just donating to charity. They were using charity to wash their fees. Zadie gave me a key card to the NCN 10 building. I stopped going home right after my shifts at the diner. I'd arrive at the station at midnight, still smelling of fry oil and coffee, and sit in the pit, the open plan office for the investigative unit. The only light was the hum of the monitors and the green glow of the vending machine. I learned to navigate the county assessor's public database. It was a clunky, ugly system, but it held the truth. I cross-referenced the names from the Lake Bridge Project invoices: Harlan Bates, Margaret Cole, Theo Winsky with the county property records. A pattern emerged, clear and ugly as a scar. Step 1. An elderly homeowner in the Lake Bridge neighborhood, asset rich but cash poor. Step 2. A free consultation with Crown Ledger Services. Step 3. A complex refinancing package, suddenly brokered by a company I'd never heard of. CLS Realty. Step 4. A lien placed on the property for unpaid brokerage and advisory fees that had been hidden in the fine print. Step 5. Foreclosure. I had to find Harlan Bates. I found him living in a cramped studio apartment above a tire shop, 3 towns over. The entire building vibrated every time they used the impact wrench downstairs. He was in his late 70s, with hands permanently stained black from a lifetime as a mechanic. He let me in. The room smelled of motor oil, instant soup, and defeat. He squinted at me, his eyes clouded with cataracts. "I know you," he said, his voice rough as gravel. "I seen your picture in the paper. You're Mark Crown's wife." "Yes, Mr. Bates." I sat on the vinyl stool he offered. "I need to ask you about Crown Ledger Services." His face darkened. He told me the whole story, how they'd offered to protect his 3 properties, his home, and 2 small rentals from inheritance taxes. "Elaine did most of the talking," he said, looking at his stained hands. "She was smooth. Said they had a new community program, but it was your name that sold me." "My name?" "Yes, ma'am." He looked me right in the eye. "They said you were the community representative, that you were, an honest waitress, that you understood working folk, not like them suits." He spat the word. "They said, Harper Flores signs off on all these community accounts to make sure the regular people get a fair shake. I trusted that. I trusted you." He had lost all 3 properties. The advisory fees had ballooned, and the refinancing deal had a balloon payment he couldn't possibly meet. I left Harlan's apartment shaking with a cold, pure rage. I wasn't just a bystander. I wasn't just a forgery. I was the bait. I was the folksy, trustworthy face of their entire predatory operation. I needed to find Mark's part in this, the final piece. I went home. It was late. He was asleep, breathing heavily, smelling of expensive bourbon. I opened his laptop. His password was his mother's birthday, followed by the year, Elaine 1952. Predictable. I opened his email. I searched his sent items for Harper Flores. It popped up instantly, an email to a VIP client list from 2 months ago. My blood turned to ice as I read the words he wrote. "And we are further optimizing our tax strategy through a new community outreach initiative. This is headed by my authorized representative, Harper Flores. Her lower income profile and community-facing employment allow us to legitimize certain service fees, creating a significant win-win for our high-net-worth clients and, of course, the firm." I closed the laptop. My hands were perfectly steady. I finally understood. My temporary job, my lack of social value, my greasy apron. It wasn't a flaw they tolerated. It was a feature they were exploiting. I wasn't the family failure. I was the front. I was the perfect, simple, low-income shield for their entire criminal enterprise. I drove back to the station. It was 3 a.m. Zadie was still there, asleep on a cot in her office, a habit I was learning was common. I woke her up. The fluorescent lights of the newsroom hummed above us. "They didn't want me to be small," I said. My voice was quiet, hard, and perfectly flat. "They needed me to be small." Zadie sat up, instantly awake. She pushed her hair out of her face and looked at me, really looked at me. "What do you need?" "I'm not seeking their approval anymore," I said. "I'm seeking justice." I looked at the wall of broadcast equipment, the recorders, the cameras. "And I need a recorder, a good one. I need to learn how to use it." The diner had a rhythm. It was hot, fast, and honest. The newsroom had a different rhythm. It was a low, electric hum, a current of tension that vibrated under the floor. Zadie didn't take me to the glossy front desk with the NCN10 logo plastered on the wall. She took me through a gray steel fire door in the back alley, the one marked Employees Only. It opened into what they called the Pit, the official name for the Northbridge City News Investigative Unit. It was not glamorous. It smelled of stale pizza, burnt coffee, and the sharp, metallic tang of ozone from the server racks. It was a sea of gray cubicles and messy desks piled high with legal binders. Binders and more binders. People didn't talk. They typed. The sound was a constant, furious clatter of keyboards. "This isn't a job. Harper," Zadie said, navigating the maze. Her voice was low. "We don't have an opening. This is a tryout. You help me with my legwork. In exchange, you learn, and you use our resources to build your case. We're giving you the tools. You have to do the work." She pointed me to a spare desk in the corner, its surface scarred by coffee rings. "For now, you're a stringer, a shadow." Her legwork was my first test. She dropped a stack of papers on the desk. It was 3 inches thick, bound with a rubber band. "This is the City Council's proposed supplemental budget for next year," she said, tapping the cover sheet. "The mayor is holding a press conference in exactly 1 hour. He's going to talk about infrastructure. I need 30 seconds of script for the main anchor, explaining where the money is actually going. Go." I stared at the pages. It was a wall of numbers, columns, and bureaucratic jargon. Section 4A Supplemental Allocation. Schedule C, Deferred Maintenance. It was intentionally dense, designed to be unreadable, but I was used to decoding noise. I was used to a customer ordering a number 3, hold the pickle, add Swiss, eggs over easy, bacon crispy, rye toast dry, side of applesauce. I just had to find the pattern. I ignored the summary pages. I went straight to the addendums. I followed the numbers, not the words. I found a line item for urban renewal projects buried in a transportation subsection. I cross-referenced the project code. The money wasn't going to potholes. It was going to a private developer who had donated heavily to the mayor's campaign, earmarked for a new luxury condo complex. I turned to the ancient computer. I wrote, "The mayor is calling it the pothole fix, but tonight we followed the money. We'll show you how $50,000 of your tax money, originally slated for road repair, is now paving the way for a new luxury high-rise. The story. Tonight at 10. I handed the single piece of paper to Zadie. She read it, her face impassive. She read it again. "You left out his quote about fiscal responsibility," she said. "That's his quote. It's not the story," I replied. A small smile flickered at the corner of her mouth. "Okay, you can stay. For now." She tossed a stack of HR forms onto the desk. "Payroll needs your info. We're paying you as a freelance researcher, $20 an hour." It was almost double my diner wage. I picked up the pen. "What's the name?" she asked. "Harper Crown." Zadie shook her head, a sharp, definitive motion. "No. Crown is the name of the people you're investigating. Harper Crown investigating the Crowns sounds like a family spat. It's messy. It's not credible. What was it before? Flores. Harper Flores." She said it aloud, testing the sound. "Clean, symmetrical, easy to remember. Use that. From this moment on, in this building, and on any document you file, you are Harper Flores." It felt like shedding a heavy, wet coat. The real boss wasn't Zadie. The real boss was Wynne. Wynne was the editor-in-chief, a tall, skeletal man who looked like he lived on cigarettes and righteous indignation. He always wore a wrinkled white button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up his bony forearms, and he looked like he hadn't slept since the 1990s. He called me into his glass-walled office. He didn't invite me to sit. "Zadie vouches for you," Wynne said. His voice was a gravel road. "But you're the subject. You're the victim. In my book, that makes you unreliable. You understand?" "I understand I'm the only one who can get inside," I said, my voice steady. "Maybe." He leaned forward, resting his palms on his desk. "Let's be perfectly clear. We are a news organization. We are not your personal revenge squad. You will follow the law. You will follow our ethics. You do not bait. You do not entrap. You do not make them commit a crime. He tapped the glass for emphasis. You only record the crime they are already committing. You expose what is real. If you cross that line, if you so much as fudge a single fact, I won't just fire you. I'll hand you over to the cops myself. Are we clear? Crystal, I said. That's when I met the station lawyer, a sharp woman named Rita, who spoke in rapid-fire bullet points. Rita explained the reality of Ohio's recording laws. This is a one-party consent state, she said, pacing in front of a whiteboard. That means if you are an active participant in the conversation, you can record audio without their knowledge. That's legal. But video is different. Zadie laid the equipment on the table, a tiny microphone that looked like a tie tack, a digital recorder the size of a matchbook, and a camera the size of a shirt button. If you meet them in a public place, Rita continued, pointing at the button cam, a restaurant, a coffee shop, a park, there is no reasonable expectation of privacy. Our cameras can roll from a distance. That button cam is your insurance. But if you go into their home or a private office, that camera stays off, or you've just committed a felony, and liable if you report that Elaine Crown forged your name, and we can't prove it. They will own this station. The stakes were clear. I had to get them to confess, on camera, in public. I didn't have to wait long. The call came 3 days later. On the burner phone I now carried, it was Elaine. Her voice was pure saccharine, a sticky sweet tone she used when she was about to ask me to serve appetizers at one of her parties. "Harper, dear," she cooed. "Mark is he's a mess. We are all so worried about you. This silence, it isn't healthy. I think it's time we had a proper, adult conversation. Just us girls, to clear the air. Why don't you come to the house? We can be comfortable." My hand tightened on the phone. Come to the house, her territory, where she had control, where no cameras could legally go. I pitched my voice to sound tired, reedy, and defeated. "Elaine, that's very kind, but I'm not really comfortable going back there. You understand, it's just too soon. Could we maybe just meet for coffee somewhere? Neutral." I suggested the Grindstone, a bustling, glass-walled cafe downtown. It was loud, bright, and full of reflective surfaces, perfect for hiding a small camera crew. "Oh," a flicker of annoyance in her voice. She was losing control of the venue. "If you must, it's so public, but fine. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. I hung up. Zadie and Wynn were watching me from across the pit. "It's set," I said. "Now the performance," Wynn said, walking over. "Who are you tomorrow?" "Flores." "I'm the wife she always wanted," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Weak, a little greedy, scared. I'm not there to accuse her of anything. I'm there because I'm worried about the divorce. I'm worried about money. I don't want trouble. I just want to understand what I'm entitled to. I want to cooperate to make things smooth." "You're not a reporter," Zadie chimed in, handing me the button cam. "You're a problem she needs to manage. You give her the opening, and you let her talk, let her brag." I spent that night practicing with the equipment, recording myself in the mirror of my new, grim one-room apartment, how to sit, how to angle my body. The next day, Zadie and a cameraman were set up at a corner table before I even arrived. I walked in, wired for sound. I can't reveal everything that happened in that cafe. Not yet. But that night, the four of us, me, Zadie, Wynn, and Rita the lawyer, sat in a dark editing bay. The only light was the glow of the monitors. We watched the footage. We watched me, looking small and pale, stirring my coffee. We watched Elaine, resplendent in a cashmere coat, lean forward. We listened as my recorded voice said, "I'm just worried. Elaine, Mark handled everything, my name. It's on so many of those community papers. I just want to make sure I'm protected." And we watched Elaine lean in closer, her smile turning predatory, conspiratorial. We watched her explain the entire mechanism, the beauty of the community liaison role, the necessity of the guided signatures. When the clip ended, the room was silent, save for the hum of the hard drives. Rita, the lawyer, spoke first, her voice flat. That's probable cause. We have a prima facie case of conspiracy. Wynne stared at the frozen image of Elaine's smug face on the screen. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright, like lit fuses. He looked at me, the real me, sitting in the dark. Go ahead, he said, his voice a low growl. Keep digging, but be careful. She's not stupid. She'll know something's wrong after this. He stood up and pointed a long, bony finger at the monitor. This is good. This is corroboration. But it's not the lead. This is the match. I need the gasoline. Get me the source documents. Get me another victim on the record. Get me the money trail. Do that. And this doesn't just sit in an evidence locker. This airs. He walked to the door and paused, his hand on the light switch. Until then, nothing. 10 p.m. is when the story goes up. Not a second before. The meeting in the coffee shop was the match. Wynne told me to find the gasoline. The next 2 weeks weren't journalism. They were demolition. I lived in the newsroom pit, fueled by caffeine and a cold, clarifying rage. My life became a series of procedural steps, each one a bolt being tightened. I filed the FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act. The acronym became a prayer. I filed them with the State Licensing Board for Elaine's credentials. I filed them with the Secretary of State for Crown Ledger's Articles of Incorporation. I filed them with the IRS for the public-facing reports of their Sunset Paws charity donations. I requested every property authorization and power of attorney form filed in Lake Bridge County that mentioned my name or Crown Ledger services. The paper trail began as a trickle, then became a flood. But the real break came from the inside, from the weakest link, Brooke. Mark, in his supreme arrogance, had never revoked my access to the shared family media server. He probably didn't even know I had it. I had set up a silent forwarding rule on my old Harper at Home email account, the one they all thought was dormant. I was waiting for a mistake. It came at 2:15 in the morning on a Tuesday, an email from Brooke to Elaine, with Mark copied. The subject line was Q4 reallocations. Brooke, in her haste, had hit reply all to an old email thread that still included my address. My heart hammered. I opened it. It was a spreadsheet, a commission distribution table. It listed client names, names I recognized from the forged invoices, like Harlan Bates. It listed the consulting fees collected, most in the range of $2,000 to $5,000. And then, the columns that stopped my breath split. A 30% cut was allocated to eCrown Ops, another 30% to Sales BK for Brooke, and the largest share, 40%, was directed to an account labeled M Crown Liaison Actee. Mark, my husband, he wasn't just a passive beneficiary. He was the primary partner. He was getting a 40% cut for his role as the liaison for managing me, the community-facing asset. This was the blueprint. Zadie and I needed him to confirm it. Mark's website was his pride and joy. It featured a slick, automated scheduler for new client video consultations. Zadie created a shell profile, The Millers, a retired couple from Florida with a modest pension, looking to move to Ohio to be near their grandchildren. They booked an appointment. Mark, smelling fresh money, sent them a private video conference link for the following day. We set up the sting in a secure NCN-10 conference room. Wynne brought in two of the station's veteran producers, a man and a woman in their 60s, to play the couple. Their voices were perfect, warm, trusting, and slightly confused by technology. I watched from the adjoining control room, headphones pressed tight, my hand gripping a pen. Mark appeared on the screen, his hair perfectly coiffed. He was in his home office, the one I had painted. Jim, Sarah, so wonderful to meet you, he beamed. The Millers played their part. They were worried about their assets. They'd heard stories. They were simple people. We're just nervous about signing things, Mark, the female producer said, her voice trembling slightly. Our son-in-law got into trouble with some complex paperwork. Mark gave his most reassuring smile, the one he used to use on me. Oh, Sarah, you don't need to worry about a thing. We handle all the paperwork. It's a seamless process. We even have a community authorization representative who handles the standard filings for our clients. It's all part of the service, just an internal process to make it easy for you. He was describing me. He was, in real time, selling the fraud. In the control room, I wrote internal process on my legal pad and underlined it. After the call, Rita, the station lawyer, reviewed the new footage. Then she went back to the audio file from my coffee shop meeting with Elaine. She isolated the key phrase Elaine, annoyed, saying, "Signing for Harper is just standard procedure. It's a formality." Rita took off her glasses. "We have it," she said, her voice flat. "That is audio evidence 1. She admitted, in her own voice, that forging your signature is standard procedure. We can legally use that." While Zadie edited the sting video, I was digging. I went back to the blank PDF intake forms I downloaded from Mark's server. I wasn't looking at the text. I was looking at the digital fingerprint. I opened the file properties. Author M. Crown Admin. Created October 10th, 2023. Mark hadn't just used the forms, he had created them. He was the architect. We had the perpetrators, we had the mechanism. Now, we needed the victim. I went back to Harlan Bates, the mechanic. I brought Zadie this time, and a small, discreet camera kit. He was terrified when he saw us. "I can't," he said, backing away. "They're powerful. They'll ruin me." "Mr. Bates," I said, blocking the door. "They already did. They used my name to do it. I am asking you to let me use my real name to fix it." "You don't have to show your face," Zadie said, her voice low and steady. "We can film you in shadow. We can digitally alter your voice, but the city needs to hear your story. From you." He looked at me for a long time, his clouded eyes searching my face. "I trusted them because of you," he whispered, "because you were just normal, a daughter-in-law. You were supposed to be one of us." "I am," I said, "and I'm going to prove it." He sat down at his small kitchen table. "All right, turn on your machine, but you hide my face." As we built our case in the darkness of the newsroom, the Crowns launched their attack in the light. They didn't know what I was doing, only that I had signed those papers and vanished. The divorce petition was filed, and the rumors began. Mark's friends started posting vague, mournful messages online. It's sad to see what greed does to a person. Some people will do anything for a payday. Elaine was more direct. She told her charity circle that I was having a mental health crisis, that I was unstable and making fantastic allegations. I was the gold digger, the bitter wife, the crazy ex. I let them talk. I ignored the 37 missed calls from Mark. I ignored the email from his lawyer. I stayed silent, collecting every screenshot, every forwarded message. Their smear campaign wasn't an obstacle. It was evidence of motive. The real shift happened on a Friday. I was working late, tracing property ID numbers. My desk phone, the NCN10 landline, rang. Investigative Flores. Ms. Flores, this is Investigator Devin Pike with the Ohio Attorney General's office. White-collar crime. The voice was female, sharp, and carried absolute authority. My stomach dropped. Yes. "We've had an active file on Crown Ledger Services for 6 months," Pike said. No preamble. "Our anonymous tips line has been active. Your name has come up, first as a potential accessory, and now, frankly, we're not sure what your role is. But we know you work for NCN10 now." "I'm investigating them," I said. "We know," Pike cut me off. "That's why I'm calling. I need to make one thing clear. You may be interfering with a state-level criminal investigation, or you may be helping it. So, you will keep your cameras rolling. You will gather your evidence, but you will not air a single second. You will not publish a single word. Not until you call me." She gave me her private cell number. "When you have your package, you call me. We are very interested in what you find." She hung up. I ran to Wynn's office. Zadie was already there. I relayed the conversation, word for word. Wynn's face went pale. This was no longer just a local news story. We were now witnesses in a state prosecution. "We coordinate," Wynn said, his voice a low growl. "We don't air, not yet, but we build the segment. We build it as if it's airing tomorrow. We get it perfect." We gathered in the main editing bay, in front of the giant whiteboard they called the murder board. "How do we tell it?" Wynn asked. I stood up. I uncapped a black marker. "It's a 7-minute segment," I said. 3 parts. I wrote on the board. Part 1, the front. We open with Mr. Bates, in shadow. We show the fake $50,000 charity check. We introduce Elaine's community service, and we introduce the front me, the waitress. Zadie grabbed a blue marker. Part 2. The flow, the money. We show Brooke's leaked spreadsheet. We follow the 40% cut to Mark's account. We show the metadata. He built the machine. I grabbed the marker back. Part 3. The signature, the crime itself. We play Elaine's audio signing for Harper as standard procedure. We play the video of Mark from the sting. And we end on the stack of forgeries. The question who signed, and how many more victims are there? Wynn stared at the board for a full minute. He picked up a red marker, walked to the board, and drew a hard circle around the entire outline. "That's the show," he said. He looked at the clock. It was almost 10 p.m. "This is the 10 p.m. special," he said. "We finalize the package. We make it airtight. Then, we call Investigator Pike." They didn't call the burner phone this time. The invitation came from Mark, to my old email, the Harper at Home address. It was a formal invitation, as if for a wedding. "Elaine and Mark Crown request the pleasure of your company for a dinner of reconciliation." The venue was the Hartwell Club. It was everything Fennel and Fur wanted to be. Old, quiet, and suffocatingly rich. The carpets were so thick they absorbed all sound. The walls were dark mahogany. The lighting was ancestral, and the waiters moved like ghosts. This was their true territory, a place where discussions were not overheard, where deals were made, and where people like me were not members. I saw Zadie before they did. She was in the corner of the bar, nursing a club soda, her blazer blending in perfectly. She looked like an overworked attorney waiting for a client. Her small camera, resting on the bar, looked like a forgotten purse. It had a perfect, clear shot of our table. They were already seated, Mark, Elaine, and to my surprise, Brooke. Mark looked terrible, which was the point. He wore the expensive suit, but his hair was artfully messy, his eyes were shadowed, and he was projecting heartbroken so loudly it was almost a stench. Elaine was composed, the matriarch holding her fractured family together. Brooke just looked terrified, her eyes darting around the room, twisting her napkin in her lap. "Harper." Mark stood as I approached, his voice thick. He tried to take my hand. "Thank you for coming. God. Harp, it's all been a nightmare." I pulled my hand back and sat down. "Mark." "Darling," Elaine began, her voice a soft, velvet glove. "You look thin. This running away, this silence, it's not you. We are worried sick." "You found a way to file for divorce," I said, my voice flat, just loud enough for our table. "You knew where I was." "That was a mistake," Mark jumped in. "A legal formality. My mother. We were just trying to get your attention, to talk to you." "I'm here. Let's talk." I reached into my bag and pulled out my small, professional digital audio recorder, not my phone. A dedicated device. I placed it on the table, between the heavy silver and the bone china bread plate. I pressed the red button. A small green light blinked on. The effect was instantaneous. Mark flinched as if I'd produced a snake. Brooke let out a tiny, choked gasp. Elaine's eyes, however, just narrowed. The velvet glove was gone. revealing the steel beneath. "What?" she said, her voice dropping an octave. "Is that—" "It's a recorder," I said calmly. "The last time we talked, at the coffee shop, I felt things were misunderstood. This time, I want to make sure there are no mistakes, that we are all perfectly clear on what's said and what's agreed upon. It's for all our protection." Protection. Mark sounded genuinely offended. "We're your family." "Are we—" "My name is on documents. Mark, documents." "I never saw. I need to understand my liability." I used the word deliberately. Liability. It was a word they understood. Elaine relaxed. I saw her shoulders drop by a fraction. She exchanged a look with Mark. She had misinterpreted my move. She didn't see an investigator. She saw a cornered, stupid girl, scared she was in legal trouble and looking for a payout. This was her stage, and she took it. "Oh, Harper," she sighed, a masterpiece of condescension. "Liability. Darling, you were never liable. You were protected. The entire system I've built. It's about protecting this family, this community." She leaned forward, her voice becoming conspiratorial. This was the hubris I was counting on. "Do you have any idea how complicated these people's lives are? These seniors, they are drowning in paperwork. We help them. The system I created, it helps a lot of people." "The system," I repeated, nodding. "Yes, and the fees, the consulting fees you were so worried about, they are a fraction of what the state would take in taxes. We provide a service, a valuable one." She gestured around the opulent room. "This," she whispered, "does not pay for itself." "And the paperwork," I prompted. It seemed like so much. "A formality," she waved her hand, dismissing it. "Efficiency. When you are dealing with this many properties, you can't run to every person for every single signature. We use a proxy authorization. It's standard practice in our field. It keeps things moving." The room was silent. I could feel Zadie's camera lens pointed at my back. I let the silence stretch. Just long enough. "I see," I said. "A proxy authorization." I turned my head slowly, looking directly at my husband. "So, the signature, my signature, the H. Flores, on the refinancing papers for Harlan Bates. Who specifically coordinated that?" The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of the club. It was a cold, hard vacuum. Elaine's face went blank. Her eyes were chips of ice. She knew, in that instant, that this was not a negotiation. It was an interrogation. She was calculating, trying to find the trap. But Mark was a performer, not a strategist. He saw the script failing. He saw his wife, cold and angry, and he tried to fix it. "Harp, come on," he said, his voice pleading, desperate to smooth it over. "That's not— You're making it sound so ugly. That was just procedural. Those forms were okayed by you beforehand. It was just a batch signing. You knew we were helping these people." He said it, okayed by you beforehand. Batch signing. A direct admission that he knew the signatures were forged, and an attempt to make me a co-conspirator. Brooke made a sound, a sharp intake of breath. She looked at Mark with pure, undiluted panic. "Mark, shut up," she hissed. Her voice was a half-scream, shockingly loud in the quiet room. "Just don't say anything else." Her eyes were wild. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me. Her gaze swept the room, frantically searching the bar, the other tables. Are you filming this? Are there cameras?" Zadie, from her angle, zoomed in, capturing Brooke's terrified face as she scanned the room. I didn't answer Brooke. I didn't look at Mark. I just stared at Elaine. Slowly, I reached back into my bag. I took out a single, folded document. I placed it on the table, on top of the recorder. "This is an affidavit," I said, my voice cutting through the tension. "I had it signed and notarized 2 days ago. At a bank you do not use, it states, under penalty of perjury, that I have never, not once, authorized you, or Mark, or anyone at Crown Ledger Services to sign my name. I never saw those forms. I never okayed a batch. I never signed. The game was over. Elaine's face was a mask of cold fury. The performance was done. The matriarch was gone. The criminal remained. "That's enough," she said. Her voice was a blade. "This is a family, my family. We will handle this privately. You will turn that recorder off. You will put that paper away. And you will listen to the generous separation offer our lawyer is drafting." I smiled. It was a small, tight smile. I stood up. The chair made no sound on the thick carpet. "No, Elaine, we won't." I left the digital recorder on the table. The little green light was still blinking. I reached into my jacket pocket and took out one more thing, a small, stiff, cream-colored business card. I slid it across the polished mahogany. It stopped just short of her wine glass. "You're right," I said. "This isn't a family matter anymore. It's a state matter." She looked down at the card. She read the name. Investigator Devin Pike, Ohio Attorney General's Office, White Collar Crime Division. "You should give her a call," I said. "I'm sure she would be fascinated to hear about your system." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back at Mark's stricken face or Elaine's pure, silent rage. I walked past the bar. Zadie was already packing her camera. I didn't acknowledge her. I met her in the lobby. We walked out of the heavy oak doors, into the cold night air. The valet stared as we bypassed him, walking fast toward the street. We were a block away, under a streetlight, before Zadie finally let out a long, shaky breath. She clicked off her camera. "My God, Flores," she whispered, a rare grin spreading across her face. They didn't just walk into the trap, they just pushed themselves, and each other, right into the frame. Leaving the Hartwell Club was like pulling the pin on a grenade. I had walked out, leaving Investigator Pike's card on the table. It was a declaration of war. I had expected a response from their lawyers. Instead, I got a street fight. It began digitally. 2 days later, Zadie was the one who found it. She spun her monitor around, her face grim. "They've gone low," she said. A new account had surfaced on a local gossip blog, a site dedicated to Riverton's social scene. The post was anonymous, titled, "Trouble in Paradise for Crown Heir." It was accompanied by a photo. It was me, years ago, at my bachelorette party, laughing, holding a drink, my arms slung over a friend. The photo itself was innocent. The caption was poison. Friends say the stress of marrying into a prominent family was too much for Harper Flores. Sources close to the family worry about her erratic behavior and partying lifestyle. Then came the photos from the switchyard, my regular after-work bar. They were grainy, taken through the window. Me, sitting alone at the counter, exhausted, nursing a single beer. The caption, "NCN 10's newest investigative reporter spends her nights alone at local dive bars. Is this who Northbridge trusts for news?" It was Elaine's voice, filtered through an anonymous keyboard. It was a smear campaign designed to do one thing: discredit the witness. Make me the unstable, gold-digging, alcoholic wife who was lashing out. The second attack was financial. It was Mark's move. I went to the small grocery store near my new apartment. I had milk, bread, and a bag of coffee. At the counter, I swiped the supplemental card, the one tied to our joint account. The cashier, a young girl, gave me a look of pity. "Declined," she said. I swiped it again. Declined. Card reported. Cancelled. I stood there for a moment, the blood rising in my face. This was his move. Stranded, humiliated, unable to buy food. He expected a tearful, desperate call. He was 2 weeks too late. "That's fine," I said, my voice steady. I put the card back in my wallet. I took out a different one, a new debit card, crisp and clean, from the Riverton Credit Union. It was attached to a new account, opened with my first freelance paycheck from NCN 10, an account in the name of Harper Flores. "We'll try this one," I said. It went through. I took my groceries and walked out. On the way to my car, I took the canceled Harper Crown card, snapped the plastic in half, and dropped it into a sewer grate. The attacks escalated. They stopped being digital. They became real. The calls started. Not to my cell, they didn't have the new number, but to the main newsroom line. Northbridge City News, Harper Flores speaking. A click, then a voice, low and muffled, like someone speaking through cloth. You're making a very big mistake. A girl like you, digging in places she doesn't belong. I froze. Who is this? Stop. Just stop. You don't want to find out what happens if you don't. The line went dead. I hung up, my hand shaking. An hour later, it rang again. Same muffled voice. We know where you live. Harper, we know you're alone. This time, Zadie saw my face. She ripped the phone cord out of the wall jack. 10 minutes later, I was in Wynn's office. Rita, the station's lawyer, was on speakerphone. This is no longer a civil matter. Rita's voice was sharp, cutting. This is witness intimidation. We are filing a report. Flores, you do not go anywhere alone. You park in the station's secure garage. Security will walk you to and from your car. Your personal address is now on a high alert list with the local precinct. Wynn tossed a small black burner phone across the desk. This is your only phone, he said. The only people who get this number are me, Zadie, and Investigator Pike. Your old life is officially over. I drove home that night, watching my rearview mirror every second. My new apartment, which had felt like a sanctuary, now felt like a glass box. I sat in the dark, the burner phone heavy in my hand. I wasn't just investigating a story, I was living inside of it. I kept thinking about my wedding night. 4 years ago, the party was over. Mark was already upstairs, drunk and triumphant. I was in the grand hallway, and Elaine found me. She was holding a glass of champagne. She stopped, and she looked me up and down. You are a crown now, she'd said, her voice a soft, conspiratorial whisper. It's a name that means something. Mark has a legacy to build. She took a sip, her eyes cold over the rim of the glass. Do something to make us proud. Harper, for once. I sat in the dark, my fingers gripping the cheap plastic of the burner phone. Do something proud. I am, Elaine, I whispered to the empty room. I am. The break didn't come from my digging. It came from the weakest part of their machine. The burner phone lit up. A text message from a number I didn't recognize. They are shredding. At the house. Mark brought in a service. My heart stopped. I typed, Who is this? The reply was instant. You know, I'm not going down for them. He and my mother, they're going to put it all on me. I was just the assistant. I just did what I was told. Brooke. They used your name for everything. Harper, the realty accounts, the offshore transfers. It's all H. Flores. I can prove it. Prove it. Where are you? I can't talk. I have a USB drive. I copied the main server before Mark started deleting files. The real client list, the internal emails, the real transfer logs. It's everything. Meet me. I typed, now. I'm scared. They're watching me. Meet me. Northbridge Library Garage. Lowest level. In 1 hour. Come alone. It was a trap. It had to be. I ran to Zadie's desk. It's Brooke. She's flipping. But it feels like a setup. Zadie was already grabbing her camera bag. It's both, she said. She's terrified. And they're using her as bait. I'm coming. I'll be 1 level up. In the van. You wear the wire. You wear the button cam. If it goes wrong, I'm calling Pike. The parking garage was a concrete tomb, smelling of damp and old oil. I saw her in the stairwell, huddled, looking like a teenager. Her expensive coat was stained. She was shaking. Did you come alone? She hissed, her eyes darting around the shadows. I did, I lied. Where is it? She pressed a tiny silver USB drive into my hand. Her fingers were like ice. You have to promise me, she whispered, grabbing my arm. I'll talk to the Attorney General. I'll tell them everything, but you can't put me on the news. You can't. My fiancé, his family, they'll be ruined. My mother, she'll destroy me. You want anonymity, I stated. I want to disappear, she pleaded, tears streaking her makeup. You can use the files. Just make me a shadow, a blurred-out face, a different voice. Please, Harper, they will crucify me. If this is real, I said, my voice hard, we will protect you. You'll be a source. We will change your voice and hide your face. Now go. She turned and fled, her heels clicking frantically on the concrete. Zadie met me by the elevator. Got the handoff. Let's go. The drive was the key. It was the entire machine. The internal emails where Mark and Elaine discussed which community-facing accounts to use, the hidden ledgers, the unedited list of victims. We were at the station all night, downloading and logging the files. Our excitement so thick it was almost suffocating. At 4 a.m, Zadie drove me back to my apartment. We pulled up to the curb. Harper, Zadie said, her voice suddenly sharp. Your car. My old sedan was parked under a streetlight. The driver's side door was open, just slightly. Stay here, Zadie said, grabbing her phone. We got out. The lock on my car door was gone, a jagged hole where it should have been. It had been jimmied, violently. The glove compartment was open, its contents old napkins. My insurance card strewn across the passenger seat. The trunk was popped. My blood ran cold. They weren't trying to steal it. It's a 10-year-old car. They were looking for the drive, Zadie said. Or planting something. She was already dialing. I'm calling Pike. This is a crime scene. We stepped back. Zadie went to talk to the night shift manager of my building. She came back 20 minutes later, her face white. The security camera on the corner caught it, she said. A black sedan. It's been casing your building for 2 days. An hour ago. It parked. A man got out. He was wearing a hat. But the car, Harper. It has a sticker on the rear bumper, the CLS logo, the Crown Ledger Services corporate logo. Sunrise, Wynn's office, the USB drive sat on his desk, next to the official police report about my car. Wynn looked like he had aged a decade. They're not smart criminals. Flores, he said, his voice a low growl. They're desperate, arrogant amateurs, and that's infinitely more dangerous. They are panicking. They just broke into a reporter's car. They are actively threatening a member of the press. He looked at me, then at Zadie. The risk-to-reward ratio has just gone critical. We can hand this drive, the audio from the Hartwell Club, all of it, to Investigator Pike. We let the state take it from here. We kill the story. And you, Flores, you get to live a long life. I looked at the drive. It was all there. Harlan Bates, the forged signatures, the 40% commission to Mark, the community-facing asset email. You told me we only air when the evidence is airtight, I said. This is past airtight, Wynn said. This is a bomb, and if we air it, they will sue this station into oblivion for libel, and they will come after you for worse. I thought about Elaine, telling me to be someone. I thought about Mark, holding his camera in my face, waiting for me to cry. I'm not the one they should be afraid of, I said. It's the truth. They're trying to kill the truth, and the only way it survives is if we put it on the air for everyone to see. I looked at Wynn. My hands were not shaking. I don't want to win, I said. I want the truth to win. We run the story. We run it all. The decision was made. We weren't just running a story. We were providing the evidence for a state prosecution, and Brooks' USB drive was the armory. We spent the next 72 hours in a windowless room that Wynn called the bunker. It was me, Zadie, Wynn, and Rita, the lawyer. We projected the contents of the drive onto a whiteboard. It was worse than I imagined. Brooke hadn't just copied files. She had copied the entire architecture of the fraud. There were the client intake forms. The metadata on every single template file showed the author eCrown admin, Elaine. She had built the trap. There was the list, the one that made me physically ill. Vulnerable client prospects. It was a spreadsheet. It listed names, ages, property values, and a final, horrifying column labeled cognitive status. Harlan Bates's entry read, trusting, low financial literacy. Then, there were the telephone engagement scripts, word-for-word guides for Brooke and other assistants to use when cold calling seniors from the list. They were full of calming, reassuring language. Our community representative, Harper Flores, a local resident just like you, personally reviews these files to ensure fairness. It was all linked to me. But the centerpiece was the money map. Zadie, who had minored in accounting, sketched it out on the whiteboard, a spiderweb of shell corporations and transfer accounts. The consulting fees from victims like Harlan Bates didn't go to Crown Ledger Services. They were funneled, in a series of small, hard-to-track transactions, into a non-profit organization I'd never heard of. The Lakebridge Renewal Initiative, I read from the board. It's a shell, Rita said, pointing with her pen. Elaine is the sole director. Mark is the treasurer. They move the stolen fees into this initiative, then pay themselves massive administrative salaries from it. They're not just committing fraud. They're laundering the proceeds through a fake charity. We had the system. We had the victims. We had the internal documents. But Investigator Pike needed one final, irrefutable piece of evidence. She needed to catch them in the act, in a clean, state-controlled sting. They're spooked, Pike told Wynne over a secure line. They're shredding documents, and their lawyer is on the attack. We have one shot at this before they lock down completely. Pike didn't use station producers. She used her own people. Two of her best undercover agents, a man and woman in their late 60s, were wired for video and audio by the state. They were given a complete financial backstory, a retired couple from Pennsylvania, moving to Lakebridge with a substantial 7-figure retirement portfolio. They were exactly the kind of client Elaine couldn't resist. They didn't just book a video chat. They went to the Crown Ledger office for an in-person wealth protection consultation. We weren't there. We watched it hours later. On a hard drive Pike's office delivered to the station. It was the Hartwell Club meeting all over again, but this time it was colder, more precise. We watched Mark, his performance of the heartbroken husband gone, replaced by the slick, confident liaison. He laid out the forms. And this, he said, tapping the paper, is our standard proxy authorization. It just allows our community representative, Harper Flores, to handle the county filings for you. It's a simple administrative step. The male agent, playing the part of the meticulous husband, peered at the paper. Harper Flores. So, she signs for us. Mark laughed. Technically, yes, but it's all based on the authorizations you give us today. It's just a time saver. Then, the door opened, and Elaine walked in. The Queen, arriving for the coronation. She smiled warmly at the agents. I just wanted to pop in and welcome you to the CLS family, she said. The female agent looked up, her voice full of grandmotherly concern. Elaine, dear, this young man was just telling us about this proxy signature. We just want to be sure. Having someone else sign our names seems unusual. Elaine sat on the edge of the desk. She was in full control. She patted the agent's hand. Oh, you don't worry your head about that. It's an approved internal practice. It's simply how we handle the volume efficiently. My daughter-in-law's name is on that file simply as a public-facing representative. It's all perfectly legal. I oversee the entire process myself. In the bunker. Rita hit pause. The image of Elaine, smiling and condescending, froze on the screen. That's it, Rita said, her voice quiet. She's just confessed to conspiracy and admitted to overseeing a pattern of racketeering. Pike has them. The call came an hour later. It was the district attorney's office, with Pike on the line. They were moving. We are executing a soft warrant, the prosecutor said. His voice was all business. We are seizing their servers and financial records at 6 a.m. tomorrow. This means your story is now an active component of a criminal prosecution. You cannot err, not a second of it. If you tip them off, If they see one frame of your broadcast before we have those servers, they will initiate destruction, and you will have obstructed justice. Wynn gripped the receiver. For how long? When can we go? You can air at 10 p.m. Thursday, the prosecutor said. Not before. We will execute our warrant at 6 a.m. We will spend the day processing the evidence. At 10 p.m., when your show hits the air, our teams will be executing the arrest warrants. Your broadcast will be the first time they realize what's happening. Your timing is now our timing. The line clicked dead. Wynn turned to us. The room was electric. We had a hard deadline. Thursday, 10 p.m. All right, Wynn growled. Zadie, you're in the edit bay. You don't leave. You're cutting 3 versions of this. The broadcast version 7 minutes, fast, brutal, and to the point. The online version longer, with links to the source documents, and the lawyer's version. He pointed at me. Every single sentence we broadcast, every claim we make, will have a corresponding piece of evidence. You and Rita are building the lawyer's cut. It's an internal file. It will be a second-by-second breakdown of the broadcast, footnoted with the exact audio clip, document, or piece of state-provided video that proves our claim. It's our shield. For the next 48 hours, we didn't sleep. I lived on vending machine coffee and stale crackers. My job was to tighten the screws. We had Harlan Bates on tape. I went back to Brooks' vulnerable client list and found 3 more victims who had lost their homes. I called them, one by one. I identified myself as Harper Flores, a reporter for NCN 10. I read them lines from Elaine's telephone script. Yes, a woman named Mrs. Petrov whispered over the phone. That's exactly what the young woman said. Harper Flores reviews these files. I remember. I trusted that name. I recorded her. I got a second. I got a third. 3 more victims, all confirming the exact same script, the same fees, the same result. They were the final nails. At 5 p.m. on Wednesday, the day before the broadcast, the counterattack came. A courier, dressed in a sharp suit, arrived at the NCN 10 front desk. He delivered a thick, leather-bound envelope addressed to Wynn. It was a cease and desist letter from Patterson, Klein, and Dubois, the same high-priced, unfamiliar firm that had drafted my divorce papers. Wynn read it aloud in the pit. It was a masterpiece of legal intimidation. It alleged defamation, libel, and slander against the spotless reputation of Crown Ledger Services. It accused me, by name, of being a disgruntled and unstable spouse engaged in a personal vendetta. It demanded we immediately halt our false and malicious investigation and threatened a lawsuit in the tens of millions of dollars. The newsroom went silent. Wynn looked at me. He looked at Rita. Rita smiled. It's a fishing expedition. They know we have something. They're trying to find out what. They're bluffing. Wynn tossed the letter onto his desk. Let's call their bluff. Rita and I spent the next 4 hours assembling our response. We didn't write a long, defensive letter. We wrote a single-page cover sheet that said, Dear Mr. Patterson, we are in receipt of your letter. We stand by our story. Please find, as a professional courtesy, a preliminary appendix of the evidence upon which our report is based. The appendix was 68 pages long. It included the transcript of Elaine's confession at the coffee shop, the transcript of Mark's admissions at the Hartwell Club, the metadata proving eCrown admin and mCrown admin built the forms, a copy of Brooks' commission spreadsheet, the signed, notarized affidavits from Harlan Bates, Mrs. Petrov, and the 2 other victims, a single, grainy, black and white, still from Investigator Pike's sting video, showing Elaine patting the agent's hand. We sent it via bonded courier at 9 p.m. Wynn gathered us by the main assignment board. He uncapped a red marker. He circled the coming Thursday on the calendar. He wrote 3 things next to it. Top of the show, 7 minutes. And then, in big block letters, 10 p.m. Lock it in, he said. This is happening. It was 6 p.m., broadcast day. I stood in the makeup room, staring at a face I barely recognized. It was my face, but the exhaustion had been professionally papered over. the shadows under my eyes concealed. I was wearing a simple dark blue blazer, my new uniform. Zadie came in, holding a printout. First teleprompter read-through. Studio B, 5 minutes. I walked through the newsroom. It felt different. The usual 5 p.m. lull was gone. The pit was buzzing, the energy sharp. I sat at the practice desk, the studio lights hot and heavy, bleaching the world beyond the camera lens. In my ear, a producer's voice, "Prompter is rolling. Read at your own pace. Harper." The words scrolled up, my words. "Good evening. Tonight, we investigate a local firm." I looked down at my hands, resting on the desk. They were perfectly still. No tremor, no sweat. They were the same hands that had gripped the pink envelope at Fennel and Fur, the same hands that had signed my name. They were just hands, ready to work. As I walked out of the studio, I checked my burner phone. It had been locked in a drawer. Per Wynn's orders, I powered it on. The screen lit up like a dying star. 17 missed calls, all from Mark. 1 new voicemail. I held the phone to my ear. His voice wasn't the voice from the Hartwell Club. This wasn't the confident salesman. This was a small, panicked sound. Harper, please, call me. We need to talk. Not about us, about you, what you're doing. This is a mistake. Stop this, please, for your own sake. Just call me. He still thought I was the one in danger. He still thought I was the one who needed saving. Then, an email, forwarded by Wynn's assistant. It was from Elaine, sent at 6:05 p.m., subject an opportunity to preserve your dignity. It was short. It was not a plea. It was a command disguised as a threat. Ms. Flores, we are aware of your intent to broadcast a malicious and false story. This will accomplish nothing but the permanent ruin of a family. It will irrevocably damage Mark. It will define you. Cancel this broadcast. Save what little face you have left. We can still resolve this separation privately. Save face, not, this isn't true, not, you have the facts wrong. It was the final confession. I deleted the voicemail. I deleted the email. At 7 p.m., we were in the legal bunker. The final, 7-minute segment played on the wall-mounted screen. It was tight. It was cold. It was a cascade of facts, audio clips, and documents. Rita, the station lawyer, watched it without blinking. When the screen went black, she picked up a red pen and signed the final broadcast clearance form. "Okay to air," she said. Her voice was flat. "Every claim is backed by a source. Every accusation is labeled as alleged. We are not speculating. We are showing our work. We've included the no comment from Crown Ledger's legal team at Patterson, Klein, and Dubois. We are clean." Wynn nodded, a sharp, single motion. Zadie, the teaser, started at 8, run at every commercial break until 10. At exactly 8 p.m., I was in the pit, drinking bitter coffee, the monitors hanging from the ceiling, all tuned to our own broadcast, cut to commercial, and then it appeared. It was 30 seconds of thunder, my face, in sharp focus. "They built a system," my voiceover said, a flash of Harlan Bates, in shadow. "They targeted the vulnerable," a flash of the forged signature, H. Flores. "And they used one woman as a shield." The screen cut to black, my voice, cold and clear. "They said she would be a 0. Tonight, she answers with the data. The NCN-10 investigation. Tonight at 10. The effect in the newsroom was instantaneous. The main assignment desk phones, usually quiet after the evening news, began to light up, one after another, a constellation of blinking red lights. My burner phone buzzed on the desk, a text, from Brooke. "I saw it. I saw the promo. Oh God, Harper. I'm not there. I'm at a hotel. I left the house." She was building her defense, distancing herself from the blast radius. A new message, a heartbeat later. "You swore. My name. You swore you wouldn't use it. Please. They'll punish me. My mother will punish me." I looked at the text. I thought about her chirpy voice on the phone, Her panic at the Hartwell Club. I thought about the USB drive. I typed one reply. I promised. You are a confidential source. Your face is blacked out. Your voice is modulated. I kept my word. A pause, then a single, pathetic reply. Thank you. 9 p.m., 1 hour to air. The newsroom was kinetic, a high-strung, frantic energy, but I wasn't there. I had slipped away. I was in Zadie's editing bay, the small, dark room, and I had locked the door. I sat in the glow of the twin monitors. I wasn't watching the segment. On the left screen, I pulled up the video file from Mark's phone. The night at Fennel and Fir. Exactly 14 days ago. It felt like another century. I saw the scene play out in silence. The wobble of the camera as I took the pink envelope, the close-up on my face, the cold, small smile as I signed the divorce papers, the pen, the NCN-10 pen. On the right screen, I pulled up the video file from Investigator Pike, the state-controlled sting. I watched the agents, playing their parts. I watched Mark and Elaine, confident, predatory. Explaining the proxy, I watched the agent's hand sign the forms that triggered the warrants. One signature to end a marriage, another to begin a prosecution. I closed both files. I sat back in the chair, in the total, silent dark, surrounded by the hum of the machines. 9:30 p.m., my old personal cell phone, the one I'd had since my diner days, buzzed from the bottom of my purse, a picture message. It was from one of the young servers at Fennel and Fir. The picture was of the bar, the long, polished bar where I had never been allowed to sit. The big television, usually locked on a basketball game, was tuned to NCN-10. The text underneath read, "The entire kitchen staff is here. The manager is pissed, but he can't stop us. We have the volume on max. Give 'em hell. Flores." A slow smile spread across my face. 9:58 p.m., 2 minutes to air. I was standing in the shadows at the edge of the main studio. The anchor from the 9 p.m. news was reading his sign-off. The studio was a cathedral of quiet tension. I could feel the electricity in the floor. A hand landed on my shoulder. It was heavy, bony, Wynn. He was standing next to me in the darkness, staring at the lit set. "They're all watching," he said, his voice a low growl. "The lawyers are watching. The Attorney General is watching. The whole Crown family is watching. They think this is a messy divorce story from a bitter wife." He squeezed my shoulder, a single, painful grip. "It's not. This is your story. The one you dug out of the sewer with your bare hands. You earned it." He gave me a gentle push forward. "Now, go tell it." A producer pointed a finger at me. 30 seconds. Harper, on set. I walked out of the shadow, into the heat of the lights. I sat in the anchor chair. I clipped my own microphone to my blazer. My hands were steady. I looked into the black, gaping void of the main camera. A small red tally light blinked on. The main anchor's voice, off camera. And that's the 9 p.m. news. But we are not finished. We begin tonight's 10 o'clock broadcast with a special NCN-10 investigation. In my ear, the countdown. In 5, 4, 3, 2. The studio speakers boomed with the opening theme music, fast, driving, serious. The screen in front of me lit up, the opening graphic for the segment, and superimposed over it, the chyron, the line of text at the bottom of the screen. It didn't say Harper Crown. It didn't say waitress. It said, Harper Flores, investigative reporter. The small red light on the camera glowed solid. We were live. The theme music faded, leaving a vast, pressurized silence in the studio. I looked directly into the lens. "Good evening. Tonight, we investigate a local wealth management firm, Crown Ledger Services. For the past year, this firm has been running what officials call a predatory consulting network, targeting seniors in the Lake Bridge community, and they used my name to do it." The screen behind me lit up. The segment began. It was a torrent. We aired the audio from my first meeting with Elaine, the audio from the hidden microphone, her voice, smooth and condescending. Signing for Harper is just standard procedure. It's a formality. We cut to the spreadsheet from Brooks' USB drive, the commission structure, plain as day. We highlighted the column, M. Crown Liaison ACT 40%. We showed the screenshot of the file's metadata author M. Crown admin, Mark's digital fingerprint, proving he built the tool that allocated the profits. We aired the interview with Harlan Bates. His face was in deep shadow, his voice digitally altered, but the pain was raw. They told me you were the community representative. His disembodied voice crackled. That you were an honest waitress. I trusted that name, and I lost everything. We cut back to me. Live at the anchor desk. I held up a single piece of paper, the leather-bound letter from Patterson, Klein, and Dubois. This afternoon, NCN 10 received a cease and desist letter from the lawyers representing Crown Ledger Services. I read directly from it, my voice cold and flat. They state their firm has a spotless reputation and that these allegations are false and malicious. They categorically deny any and all wrongdoing and characterize this report as a personal vendetta by a disgruntled spouse. I placed the letter down on the desk. They deny everything. I looked back at the camera. But in a joint operation with the Ohio Attorney General's office, NCN 10 filmed this. This footage was recorded last week during a state-authorized sting operation. The broadcast cut to the sting video, the final, damning piece. We watched the two undercover agents playing the hesitant, wealthy couple. We watched Mark enter, smiling, explaining the paperwork. We showed the close-up of the form Proxy Authorization H. Flores. We showed the agent asking, "So, she signs for us." And we showed Mark, laughing casually. Technically, yes, but it's all based on the authorizations you give us today. It's just a time saver. Then, we aired the moment Elaine entered, her voice dripping with authority. It's an approved internal practice. My daughter-in-law's name is on that file simply as a public-facing representative. I oversee the entire process myself. As she spoke her confession, a hard, white text graphic appeared at the bottom of the screen, superimposed over her smiling face. This meeting was filmed under the direct supervision of the State Attorney General's office. And then, Wynn initiated the masterstroke, the thunderbolt. The screen split. On the right, the pre-taped sting video continued. On the left, a new feed appeared. It was dark, lit only by flashing blue and red lights. The graphic read, "Live, Downtown Riverton." I turned to the live feed. While this investigation was ongoing, I said, my voice narrating the chaos, the Attorney General's office was preparing to act. We can confirm that at this moment, right now, investigators are on the scene. The live shot stabilized. We saw a dark sedan pull up. A woman stepped out, her trench coat flapping in the wind. Investigator Devin Pike. She was joined by a dozen other agents, all wearing vests marked State Investigator. The camera panned up. They were outside the gleaming glass doors of the Crown Ledger Services building, the same building where Mark and Elaine had filmed their confession just days before. We watched, along with the entire city, as Devin Pike presented a document to the night security guard. The doors opened. The agents swarmed in. The warrant was being executed. Perfectly timed to the second our report aired. They had nowhere to run. They couldn't destroy the evidence, because we were showing the evidence to the world. I didn't need to see it, but I could picture it. I pictured the living room in the Crown Estate, the big television, reflecting the blue and red lights of the live feed onto their stunned faces. I saw Mark, finally understanding. I saw Elaine, her face a mask of stone, her hand gripping the arm of her chair, perhaps clutching one of those leftover pink, silver butterfly envelopes, the envelopes that started it all. The broadcast cut back to me, the anchor desk. The segment was ending. The truth, I said, is not a vendetta. It is a fact. And the fact is that a system, designed by Mark Crown and Elaine Crown, used my name to defraud the elderly. I leaned forward, my eyes holding the camera. If you, or anyone you know, has been charged a consulting fee or signed a proxy authorization with Crown Ledger Services, please call the number on your screen. The Attorney General's hotline is now open. A toll-free number appeared next to my head. The segment ended. The red light on the camera blinked off. We were in commercial. For 1 second, there was absolute silence in the studio. Then, I heard it. A sound from the newsroom, beyond the studio doors. It wasn't talking, it was ringing. I ripped the earpiece out. The sound was deafening. It was every phone in the pit. The main assignment desk line, the tip line, the general station number. It was a wall of simultaneous, frantic ringing. The hotline was exploding. The studio door burst open. Zadie ran in. She didn't say anything. She just grabbed me, pulling me out of the chair, and hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. You did it, Flores. You actually did it. Wynn was standing in the doorway, his arms crossed. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were blazing. He didn't smile. He just gave me a single, sharp nod, the highest praise he was capable of. I walked past them. I needed air. I walked through the chaos of the pit, past the ringing phones and the shouting producers. I didn't stop. I took the stairs, 2 at a time, until I hit the heavy metal door to the roof. I pushed it open. The wind off the Northbridge River was freezing. It hit my face, stinging my eyes, smelling of cold water and city grit. I stood there, overlooking the skyline. The city lights scattered like jewels below. I finally let out the breath I'd been holding for 14 days. I pulled out my personal phone, the one Mark still knew. I opened a new text message. My fingers were steady on the cold glass. I typed one sentence. You said without you, I was a zero. Tonight, at 10 p.m., the whole city saw me, and they saw you. I hit send. Thank you for listening to my story. If you're listening, comment below and let me know where in the world you are tuning in from. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by more people.